News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
Missoula police investigating what appears to be a burglary that occurred early yesterday morning. Good morning, everyone. Montana Morning for Tuesday, October 4th, 2016. Some light rain falling in the area right now. We have roads that are bare and wet. We have 44 degrees in Missoula right now. Newscast this morning is sponsored by Selway Armory on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana, Montana's premier firearms dealer. Missoula police investigating what appears to be a possible burglary in the 4800 block of Scott Allen Drive in Upper Miller Creek that occurred at about 3:30 yesterday morning. We reported on this yesterday. Public Information Officer Travis Welsh said a young girl was alone in the home when the alleged incident occurred.
The officers arrived at the scene. They were able to make entry into the residence and found the complainant alone in the house. The house appeared to be secured, except for a displaced screen over a window.
Welsh said the young girl had suffered some minor injuries.
The girl had suffered some minor puncture wounds to one of her upper legs and was transported to the hospital for some initial treatment before being released to her family. The investigators are continuing to work on this case. The car has been excluded that was seen earlier, and we continue to look for any leads that might suggest who may have been involved.
Investigators believe that at this particular time, the complaint does not represent any threat to the public. A Kalispell woman has pleaded guilty in the death of her toddler son more than a year after the child was beaten by her former boyfriend. The Flathead Beacon reports 23-year-old Takara K. Juntanen pleaded guilty yesterday to negligent homicide. Prosecutors agreed to drop a drug possession charge as part of a plea deal and recommended a 20-year prison term with 15 years suspended. Juntanen is accused of leaving 2-year-old Forrest Groeschel in the care of Brandon Newberry, despite knowing he was being abused and failing to seek medical help before he died of poisoning due to a lacerated small intestine. Newberry is serving a 40-year term for mitigated deliberate homicide in the boy's death. Juntanen is scheduled for sentencing in December. At about 9 o'clock Saturday night, two passers-by at the 3700 block of Russell saw a woman apparently being beaten by a man. They stopped to render assistance, and the alleged assailant fled. Deputy Missoula County Attorney Brittany Santorno asked for $50,000 bail for Michael Leonardini.
A passerby who had no connection with the two individuals observed the defendant hit the victim several times and then called 911. The victim indicated the defendant punched and slapped her multiple times and that she didn't believe the defendant was going to stop until the passerby intervened.
Santorno detailed other charges against Leonardini, who was said he is schizophrenic.
Additionally, Judge, this defendant has 5 prior assault convictions, including 1 felony assault from Washington in 2008, and he perpetrated this attack in public. The defendant's attack was severe enough that made 2 separate people feel compelled to call the police.
Justice of the Peace Ryan Phelan set bail at $50,000 and remanded Leonardini back to the jail. U.S. wildlife officials say greater protections are needed for 2 rare aquatic insects in Glacier Park as climate change melts their icy habitat. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Monday proposed adding the western glacier stonefly and the meltwater Lendian stonefly to the government's list of threatened species. The stoneflies live in streams fed by cold water from glaciers in northwest Montana. Those glaciers are predicted to largely disappear by the year 2030. In part due to climate change, researchers say the stoneflies could also disappear. It's uncertain what measures could be taken to preserve the insects. There have been preliminary discussions among biologists about raising stoneflies in laboratories and seeding different streams with them. But those streams could also dry up as climate change drives global temperatures higher. When politicians debate the merits of Missoula's recently approved expansion on gun sale background checks, gun retailers are trying to figure out how to handle the new law when and if it goes into effect. Some have expressed concern that they have to run background checks on both the buyer and the seller, and that the gun would have to be taken into a store's inventory to do those checks. Missoula City Councilor Brian von Lossberg said, though, that's not necessarily the case.
I would direct people to its ATF policy 2013-1, which specifies the process to go through, and these various cases where proceed or a cancel or a delay. And in none of those cases, the person is required to relinquish the firearm, and they can leave with the firearm. So there's been confusion over this point.
Selway Armory owner Travis Lindemann said his employees have been instructed to handle these background checks just like an online sale, which means the store will take the gun into its inventory and run a background check on the buyer. If the buyer doesn't pass, they'll run a background check on the seller before they can give it back.
This ordinance isn't going to make anybody safer because anybody that's going to break the law is going to go do it outside the city or just do it illegally because they're a criminal. But if somebody wanted to do this through us, we do internet transfers all the time, and we would treat it just like an internet transfer because if we become a party to this transaction, we want to make sure that we dotted every I and crossed every T.
Local gun stores don't have a lot of time to figure out how they'll proceed with the new ordinance, which is set to go into effect just a few days before Halloween. Northwestern Energy attempting to raise rates on Montana natural gas customers. Currently, they're in talks with the Public Service Commission. Here's Northwestern Energy spokesman Butch Larkham.
We're asking them to help us cover some of the costs of delivering and producing natural gas across Montana. For a residential customer, we're asking for an additional $4.81 per month. Certainly, nobody likes to hear about higher rates for anything, but in reality, there's some good news here, and the market price of natural gas has gone down considerably in recent years.
Larkham says he hopes Montanans will consider the savings they've had on natural gas recently.
In 2005, the average residential bill for natural gas in Montana was just over $106 per month. In 2015, it was about $78 a month. So people have been seeing some savings there, which is good news, and so we'll hope they'll keep that in mind when they hear more about this rate request from us.
And finally, Governor Steve Bullock has ordered flags to be lowered to half-staff today in honor of a Bataan Death March survivor who died last month. Ben Steele died September 25th at the age of 98. Bullock says Steele taught us to never give up on the importance of inspiring future generations after overcoming indescribable adversity. Our News Talk time is 6:11.
News Talk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Low clouds and patchy fog this morning will give way to mostly cloudy skies. Unsettled weather continues today with the threat of valley rain and mountain snow. Temperatures will be below normal with highs in the mid-50s. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for Missoula's KECI 13.